So when I was watching Emperor's no, when I was watching Episode 8 of Star Wars Last Jedi, I was having a pretty good time. I liked some of the jokes and quips, and it was fun, and the action was really great. And if you know me at all, you know my favorite thing is creativity and story. And this isn't to say Star Wars is bad. I don't want you to think that. When I have a conversation, it's like comparing two different fine wines. You can like cheap wine, you can like expensive wine, you can like whiskey, you can like brandy, you can tell me you prefer soda or water for whatever reason. We're not having a conversation on whether or not something's bad. If you love something, like let's take Call of Duty, we can argue Call of Duty versus Apex Legends versus um, Halo or Halo's predecessor, Marathon and Unreal Tournament. There's a lot of things to be said about all of these, and this isn't a good and bad arena. This is a critique arena where we talk about what we liked about movies and why. And I know a lot of you guys who follow me already kind of get this, but it took a long time for my friends and roommates to get a hold of how I kind of think. If you love cinema and you love fiction and you want to talk about how to make it better or how you would have done it, it sounds like you're putting it down. It sounds like you hate it, and that's not true at all. So if I sound like I hate it, maybe take a break and come back. Um, but the goal, my ever enduring goal, is to just study and absorb a lot of media, so that way when I make media, it's fantastic. That is my goal and my dream, my love above and beyond, is to make media that warms the heart of others and that really causes them emotions of elation. Okay, so I'm watching episode 8, and I noticed things were wrong when all the bombs fell out of the. I apologize, I don't know the ship's name, but all the bombs fell right onto the. What do they call it? Whatever the thing was, it was a fleet killer. A space frigate? A space. Destroyer? Fleet destroyer? Oh man, the comments are gonna go crazy with that. So. Poe goes after the fleet destroyer, and they lose a lot of the people, and that kind of worried me. I'm like, there's not a lot of rebellion left. What's going on here? And then we just drop bombs, and my friends had this to say. They said um, a lot of Star Wars was inspired by the war, by the Nazis, and the stormtroopers. Were kind of the same way, but that doesn't mean you just take from it. It's inspired by. Um, and so it seemed lazy. I'm just gonna go out and say it just seemed lazy. It just seemed cheap. It seemed shallow. It wasn't creative. They didn't take like a bomber fighter and evolve it. In Stargate Atlantis, when they fire torpedoes, several torpedoes, they look like kind of like jellyfish, and they kind of swim through the air, and they glow and they spiral around, and you have to concentrate. And these are just falling bombs in space, which I know the TIE fighters dropped bombs in space in episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back, to try and find the Millennium Falcon, but it was at least interesting. Like, they flashed and they glowed blue, and you could convince yourself that they kind of were propelled in that direction, whereas these bombs just fell in space. And if you're young and don't understand why I'm confused, it's because in space there's no gravity, so they wouldn't fall down. And the way they fell, it didn't seem like they were projected, they just fell. So it was at this moment I knew that the movie wasn't going to be I don't want to say it's not interesting if because it sounds like I'm being pretentious, but I knew the movie was going to be like a Marvel movie, and I love Marvel movies. Don't think I don't for a second. I'm not being pretentious. I absolutely love Marvel movies. But a Marvel movie tends to be built by architecture. You can kind of see that they want to make sure they include all these things. Whereas original Star Wars, it was a story told. Think about Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings, it wasn't like, oh, I have to have a villain, and I have to have a magic item, and I have to have a hot girl, and I have to have battles. You can tell they just told a story. Sorry, Tolkien just told a story, and this is how it turned out. Like the original X-Men comics and the original X-Men cartoons, like the stories were really interesting and deep and philosophical. Think of the original Batman cartoons, real deep and philosophical. And then you get to Justice League and Batman v Superman, and it's like it's a little plain. It's a little normal. Like there's not really a lot to dive your heart into. And if you're okay with that, you're okay with that. That's totally fine. But I prefer to have, if I have my way, philosophy, because when there's something philosophical like when do you fight? How do you deal with a bad guy that you can't beat? Like with the Joker in The Dark Knight. Sorry, Joker wasn't someone you can't beat. It's somebody you couldn't understand. That's right. So now that we kind of understand each other, or at least hopefully you understand me, and know that I'm not trying to be dark or demeaning or put down your favorite thing in the world, that I'm just trying to be critical of it. That way we can kind of dissect it and pull out our favorite juicy bits, and then maybe learn something from the talking and dissection, so that way when we go to write something, it has good elements. You don't think The Matrix had elements from Ghost in the Shell, and you don't think Ghost in the Shell had aspects from Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? So okay, so we get to the bombs, and I'm like, wow, this isn't going to be good. And then we get to the part where the girl, the remote is there, right? The remote is there right before the bombs drop. And I'm like, this is just like the scene where Luke goes for the lightsaber. And I realize we're seeing a copy of Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back. And my brain just starts flying ahead of me, because I have pretty decent intuition. I see connections. I like connections. I look for connections. I see connections. Doesn't mean I'm right, but it's what I enjoy doing. And I just think, oh, I know exactly what's going to happen. I can predict all of this. And obviously I couldn't predict all of it, but I'm just daydreaming, just thinking. And I'm like, okay, what's the first thing we're going to see? We're going to see Finn in water. And you might be thinking, like, why are we going to see Finn in water? Well, if you remember in Episode 5, Luke gets stuck in outdoors, right? He gets stuck outdoors on the Hoth world, and he almost freezes, so Han has to get him back, and they have to put him in that water tank to raise his body temperature. And so it's like a healing tank with the healing they don't call them androids, they call them droids. Next one. And then we go to Episode 8, and we've got Finn waking up in the water, and he's got a little water suit on, just like I knew was going to happen. And everyone thought that was really funny, but everyone missed the reference. And okay, let's see what happened next. I probably should have put this on chronological order. Um, oh, in the beginning of the movie, they're escaping, right? They're escaping. Oh, I should really put these in order while I'm doing this episode so I don't have to go back and do it. Well, whatever. So they're escaping, and I'm like, hey, it's just like when they had to escape Hoth in the beginning of the movie. Wow. Okay. And then what else did we get? I knew Rey. Well, we already knew Rey was on that planet with Luke, but that was kind of like how Luke had to go to Dagobah system to train under Yoda. And then I started thinking, okay, what else? What else? There's going to be like a darkness that Rey has to fall into to like learn more about herself and confront herself. Because Luke walked into the kind of the tree area. No, he fell into the hole too. Um, and he faced himself and fought himself like a shadow version of himself who was Vader, and cut off the helmet, and saw himself, meaning, be careful of the dark side. And then Rey goes down and sees nothing. And, Luke learns about his family, that Darth Vader's his dad, and Rey learns about her family, that she has no family. Well, what are some other ones? I'm saving some of the really, really good ones for last. Oh, okay, so here's one that, because I kept getting bored, I'm like, nothing's really happening. Like, Rey's training herself. Luke somehow forgot that he was full of love and compassion and honesty. So that's kind of weird. And then they have to get off the ship, right? They have to get off the ship to get the... I don't even remember. It was such a weird plot line. But they have to get off the ship to go talk to the dude to get the thing. And I'm like, okay, so if they're getting off the ship, that means they're going to go to the floating city. They're going to go to a very sexy-looking floating city. Because what did they do in Empire Strikes Back? They went to Cloud City. And what did they do in The Last Jedi? They went to the gambling city that is floating on water. I'm like, hey, look, it's a sexy-looking city floating on water, just like I thought. And I still wasn't kind of convinced. Like, I thought it was just kind of like a little bit of a coincidence, or just kind of like trying to throw back to some of the stuff we love. Oh, that was another good one. So Han gets frozen in kryptonite in Empire Strikes Back, and there's a bounty hunter with him that wants his payment if anything happens, and the Emperor says, or Darth Vader says, the Empire will pay you if anything happens to him. And then we got, I really wish I knew her name, the Chrome Girl. I'm such a bad podcaster. Phasma? Yeah. And then, her money comes waltzing up in a black case. I'm like, hey, look, she's just like a bounty hunter, except she's a stormtrooper bounty hunter. Okay. So we're on Cloud City 2.0, and they're talking to the guy to help them with their plan. And if you've ever played Dungeons & Dragons and tried to find a random thief to help you do something sneaky, the only thing you can be really sure is the demon's going to try and screw you over. And so they meet Benicio del Toro, who plays the Collector in the Marvel Universe. And I'm like, okay, so if he's supposed to be like Lando, another scoundrel, that means he's going to betray them. And then he betrays them. And I'm just like, okay, alright, well, now it's a party. And so then I go, okay, if they're really copying him, Leia's going to fall through a hole and have to use the Force to save herself. And I'm so bored, and everyone's like, what's going on? I'm like, I know what's going to happen. Like, you can't know what's going to happen. I'm like, no, I know what's going to happen. Leia's going to fall through a hole and have to save herself. I'm like, okay, and then what happens? The ship explodes. Leia falls through a hole in the ship. She's out in space. and then she has to reach with the force and propel her body back towards the ship to save herself. And I was like, wow, that's just impossible. I can't believe I predicted that one. And so I get mad, like not mad, but like playfully mad. And I go, okay, so what does this movie not have? I'm like, where's my tauntauns? My friend's like, there's no tauntauns in this movie. I'm like, no, there's tauntauns. The tauntauns are going to be here. Just wait. There's going to be tauntauns. They have to be tauntauns. Like, why do they be tauntauns? Like, tauntauns are cute, and you can sell tauntauns as toys, and they're adorable, and everyone likes tauntauns, so they're going to have an adorable tauntaun. But it's not going to be a real tauntaun. It's going to be a fake tauntaun. Like, okay, whatever. I'm like, where's my tauntaun? Oh, like, for like 20 minutes, where's my tauntauns? Tauntauns are going to show up. Just you wait. Like, they're on a city in the middle of nowhere. There's not going to be any tauntauns. And then, what happens? I'm like scrubbing through the video files as oh, there they are. My tauntauns show up. They go into the stable, and where are they? Oh, they're things that almost look, that have a lot of the key features as actual tauntauns. You ride them, they got big old heads and big old black eyes. And so they race tauntauns. Okay. There's my tauntauns. I told you. And I was like, okay, what's left? They have to go to, like, they can't go to a snow planet, so they're going to go to a planet, but it's going to have, like, interesting ground. And they're going to fly in some beat-up, junky flyers. And that's what they're going to do. And then we go to the red planet, and they're flying in junky flyers towards the AT-ATs, just like in Empire Strikes Back, when they fight the AT-ATs. And then the last connection I noticed is, so there's the big reveal that, like, Luke is Darth Vader's son. I'm like, oh, big reveal. And so they have a big reveal in episode 8, where it turns out Luke isn't there at all. And so those are the connections I found. And I thought you guys would like to share in that. So yeah, well, hopefully if I can get the time, I'll have another video this week or next week. And if you got homework to do, make sure you read the book first. It makes it really, really easy. Read the book before the lecture if you want an easy way to get an A. If you're having a lot of stress, make sure you get sleep, because a lot of people aren't sleeping. They're staying up all night on their phone and then getting like 6 hours. Get some sleep. And yeah, I love you guys. I wish you guys well, and have a good night.